television. I'm Sean Wakimalo in Abuja. So much to chew tonight. We'll try as much as possible within the time that we have to be able to put all of the information that you need and your major stories in the front burner tonight. So stay with me, everyone, and let's get started. Let's get to Ondo State. You probably have heard what the Deputy Governor, Lucky Aiyedatiwa, has been saying. He extended an unreserved apology to the State Governor, Rotimi Akeredolu, over the what he says is an embarrassment that the ongoing political crisis must have cost in the state. Mr. Aiyedatiwa says that the crisis was being fueled by some political contenders in the state and that he remained loyal to the governor and his administration.
I remain fully committed to the principles of good governance that Mr. Governor has established, and I pledge my unwavering loyalty to him, and I will continue to submit myself under his able, courageous, and selfless leadership. I wish to thank the national leadership of our great party, APC, for the intervention on the impeachment move against me, while I also pledge my commitment to the reconciliation efforts aimed at restoring peace in our state. I want to appeal to all political actors in the state to put an end to this needless crisis and allow peace so that we can all concentrate on the development of our dear state.
Well, there are indications that the governor may have rejected the apologies of his Deputy Governor, Rotimi Akeredolu. He's been said to have rejected the apology tendered by Mr. Lucky Aiyedatiwa over the ongoing political crisis in the state. The governor is said to have reacted to the apology through his senior special assistant on strategy, special duties and strategy, Dr. Doyin Odebowale, who has been quoted to have said that the deputy has a question to answer before the State House of Assembly. Former President Goodluck Jonathan has been speaking about the outcome of the 2023 presidential election judgment from the Supreme Court. We'll be getting to learn some lessons from what he said and analyzing what has become a major issue from that also. A lot of issues that have come up since we understand the outcome of the Supreme Court, which has affirmed President Bola Tinubu as the elected president from the 25th February 2023 elections. We'll be getting some insight tonight with my guests, very special guests tonight on the program. But let's check out some of your political roundup stories first.
A former justice of the Supreme Court, Justice Mohammed Datijo, says it portends great danger for the country's democracy to have the southeast and north-central regions not represented on the bench of the Supreme Court of Nigeria. Justice Datijo stated this at his valedictory court session held to mark his retirement from the Apex Court bench, having attained the statutory retirement age of 70 years. The Niger State-born jurist, who spent 43 years in the judiciary, notes that with his retirement, justices on the bench of the Apex Court have reduced to 10, with 2 regions of the country not represented.
With the person of my Lord, Honorable Justice Chima Santos Weze, JSU, on 29 July 2023, the Southeast no longer has any presence at the court.
The Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukayode Ariwola, on his part, however, assures that efforts are in top gear to elevate a sizable justices to the Supreme Court.
With him leaving us today after the retirement of Honorable Justice Adamu Amina Augi a few weeks ago, we are now left with just 10 justices on the Supreme Court bench.
Today, the governor of Osun State, Senator Ademola Adeleke, has launched a 100 billion naira infrastructure fund aimed at fueling economic development in the state. The initiative, which covers diverse sectors such as healthcare, education, road construction, water supply, flyover bridges, and more, was announced at the Government House, Osogbo, the state capital.
We are poised to put a boost the state economy, as 95% of the project shall be executed by local content.
The Sokoto State Election Petition Tribunal has upheld the election of Senator Aliyu Wamako of the All Progressives Congress as the duly elected senator representing Sokoto North Senatorial District. Mr. Mania Dania of the People's Democratic Party had filed a petition challenging the victory of Senator Wamako on allegation of certificate forgery, non-qualification, and that the election did not comply substantially with the provisions of the Electoral Act. Honourable Mohammed Saliu, a member of the House of Representatives representing Yola North, Yola South and Gire Federal Constituency, whose election was nullified by the Governors and National Assembly Tribunal sitting in Yola, has denied the claims that the Court of Appeal barred him from seeking or holding public office in the future. At a news conference in Abuja, Honourable Saliu urged the National Assembly to amend the Electoral Act to allow the Supreme Court be the final court of appeal of cases arising from National Assembly elections. Ahead of the November 11, 2023 governorship election in Kogi State, the Kogi professional women are appealing to women to participate actively in electing the next governor of the state. Addressing a news conference in Abuja, the convener of the group, Mrs. Raliat Abdusalam, says the participation of women in politics is key to the development of Kogi State and the entire country, as she advocates for free and fair elections.
Thank you so much. And there you have it. You've been served with your political roundup stories. Let's begin tonight by letting you know what former President Goodluck Jonathan said. He said that following the Supreme Court's validation of President Bola Tinubu's electoral victory, Nigeria must now move forward. He visited President Tinubu today at the Aso Rock presidential villa. Take a listen to the former president.
We need to bring everybody, all our political leaders, including all the former presidents, together. We will not be fighting. If we fight, like, you know, this common saying that when two elephants fight, the grass suffer. If top leaders continue fighting, they will not suffer that much. But the down through that suffer. And we want to end all this tension and so on. So we move forward as a nation.
All right. That on one hand, elections are over, litigations are over. We need now to focus on governance, which will be a fulcrum of our conversation tonight. Of course, we dissect what the lessons are from the Supreme Court verdict. But we cannot take our eyes off our elections, especially the ones that are coming. Of course, lessons from that Supreme Court. So the Security Council Committee on Elections have met today, which includes the Inspector General of Police, the National Security Advisor, the Army Chiefs, all met today with the INEC Chairman and other stakeholders. They met at the NSA office earlier today in Abuja, but there seems to be some confidence because the Chief of Defense Staff is very confident that they will punish anyone who jeopardize within the military the electoral process, the Kogi, Bayelsa, and Imo election. But let me allow you to listen to some of the gentlemen who spoke.
The three states of Bayelsa, Imo, and Kogi are not the easiest states in Nigeria to conduct elections. The difficult geographical terrain and prevailing insecurity are compounded by negative mobilization by political actors, especially since the commencement of campaign in public on 14th July 2023. Our message to politicians is that they should call their candidates and supporters to order. Violence and other undemocratic activities, such as vote buying, attack on election officials, and disruption of the electoral process will never be and must never be condoned.
This election is going to be free and fair. This election will be without interference. This election is going to be without violence. This election is going to be credible. It's going to be a litmus test for us. Three important states one in this part of Nigeria, one in the southeast, and one in the south-south. And we are ready. We will provide what it takes to ensure that we have a credible election.
The security agencies are ready for this election. We have received all necessary information from INEC, which has informed us on where to deploy to during this election. We have carried out our threat assessment, and that has informed us with respect to allocation of our resources and deployment of our men. All the security agencies are collaborating strongly to ensure that this election is violence-free. My appeal to people who may want to come out to make trouble during this election is to stay away from this election, because there will be no place for them to operate in this election.
We are already deployed fully on ground, both covertly and overtly, and to ensure that anybody who attempts to disrupt any of the elections will have himself to blame. We have set warnings. We have court martials on standby. Any of the members of the armed forces who misbehaves in whatever ways will have himself to blame. The court martials are fully operational already. We want to ensure that we act professionally in everything that we do.
Some of the security chiefs are talking tough, that the NSA is making promises. The elections are going to be free and fair. But we see how that goes and what plans they have on the ground, where that confidence is coming from. But let's get to take the matter from the Supreme Court judgment, and we look at the governance issues and, of course, our elections. I'm being joined tonight by a senior advocate of Nigeria, rights activist, Mr. Ebumolu Adegborua. He joins us virtually from Lagos. It's a pleasure to see you, Leonard Sick. Thank you so much indeed for joining us tonight on the program.
Thank you. Good evening. My pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. Although it's 24 hours now since the Supreme Court gave its verdict on the election of Bola Tinubu, and which affirmed the position of the trial court, the Presidential Election Petition Court, and now gave his opposition upon how the elections were conducted and how the appellants approached the matter. Give us your own insight, or give us your view on the outcome of the Apex Court's decision.
Thank you. I think it's for us, first of all, to appreciate the dexterity of their lordships and the urgency with which the matter was approached, such that an appeal that was argued on Monday, a judgment has been delivered within the same week. And I think it should send a signal to the other courts below, the Court of Appeal, and indeed the high courts, on the need to let litigants know their fate timelessly. And having said that, also to commend the appellants, especially Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. If you have followed his politics over the years, he's somebody who believes in the rule of law. Whatever issues he wants to canvass, he will deploy the legal system to fight his battles. And the same thing with His Excellency Dr. Peter Obi, in terms of their resolve to follow due process of law to ventilate their grievances. It is a commendable effort. And of course, to the president who has been affirmed, also his resolve to also follow the law and not to use his power of incumbency to silence opponents or to hinder the process of access to justice. And I think that from the assessment of the decision of their lordships, most of the issues that were resolved had been decided long ago by the same court. Matters relating to the status of the Federal Capital Territory, the issues of double nomination, and indeed the issue of the role of technology in elections had been discussed and indeed resolved. We were only looking forward to the fact that the electoral umpire gave promises especially towards the election, you remember, INEC spokesperson, I think Mr. Festus Okoye also was on TV every day assuring Nigerians that election will be credible, it will be transparent, and indeed will be uploaded on the IRF portal. And, because if you sample the opinion of majority of Nigerians, most people had left election to politicians. In the years past, a lot of people had become a little bit paranoid concerning elections. But this particular time, the assurances of INEC, the promise to deploy technology, give the impression that we're going to have a system that will be different from what we used to know. So that revved up, or at least brought about the interest of a greater number of Nigerians to participate in the election. And so I believe that if it is true, as their lordship said yesterday, that failure by INEC to upload election result on the IRF portal meant that there was loss of confidence in that process. That indeed is a heavy statement. And it's a declaration of lack of confidence in the electoral umpire itself. Because when the electorate have lost confidence in the electoral system, then it then goes to the issue of the genuineness of the results of that effort itself. I'll just give you an example, Shehu. In this country, years past, the late Chief M.K. Abiola had a newspaper outfit called Concord Press. And there was a publication that Julius Berger was building houses for justice of Supreme Court, and that it was an attempt to bribe their lordships by the Babangida regime. And their lordships felt offended and briefed their lawyer and filed a suit for defamation against Chief M.K. Abiola in court here in Lagos. Over the years, fast forward, Chief M.K. Abiola eventually contested the 1993 election and was elected unanimously by everybody in Nigeria. And of course, that election was annulled, and Chief MKO insisted on his mandate. Eventually, he was arrested and charged to court from the Federal High Court to the Court of Appeal, and eventually the case got to the Supreme Court. Before the same justices who had initiated a libel suit against his company. And the issue came. And once and for all, the Supreme Court justices said, we cannot sit on this appeal, even though we will be fair to the man. But the eye of the ordinary Nigerian, the likelihood of the thinking of the average person on the street will not give us that benefit of objectivity. So they recuse themselves. It is the same with elections. People's perspective, the opinion of people concerning election matters to the outcome of that election. It's not just a matter of figures. And that's why I thought that if it became clear to all of us that INEC failed Nigerians, that INEC reneged on its promises, there should be some penalty. It won't just walk away like that. Not just walking away like that. INEC participated in the process of the election petition from the Court of Appeal up to the Supreme Court, even opposing the views of the appellants. And I thought that that's something that we can learn from. That if the body did not fulfill its promises to the people of Nigeria, what will be the consequence for that failure? So that when we get to Bayelsa in November, when we get to Imo, when we get to Kogi, INEC will remember that if we continue in this way, there will be some sanctions. For instance, the head of the agency, what has happened? All those people who gave us those promises, what has happened? So I think that that was a little challenge in terms of the outcome of that election. And then secondly, the other decisions that were resolved by their lordship, I believe that they should be limited to election petition cases. Because we'll have challenge, for instance, if you say that a witness who is to come via subpoena, cannot front load his statement. Because, most witnesses who come by subpoena are people that you don't have access to, government agencies, public officers. You cannot have access to them prior to their appearing before the court. So I believe that that kind of decision, for instance, in respect of those witnesses that were struck out, will be limited to only election petitions, because it will be unfortunate to import that principle to our regular cases, because it will do great injustice to the prosecution of cases in the court. Other than that, I must commend their lordships, like I said, for the industry, and then for helping us to come to a conclusion timelessly so as to reduce the tension that was within the land before now.
Let me ask you, I mean, do you imagine that the speed at which the Supreme Court attended to that matter was somewhat unusual?
I don't think it's somewhat unusual, and I'll say the reasons why. I mean, except we won't want to say the way it should be. Virtually everybody involved in legal practice, every advocate, can prophesy to you what will happen in cases because we have precedents. We have cases that we rely upon for the decisions that we urge their lordships to give us. So within our own circle in the legal profession, I think it was clear that everybody probably knew that that would be the outcome of that decision. It was just that, for me, it was an opportunity for us to also then leverage on how to correct the anomalies, that we have seen in the election, especially the issue of deployment of technology. And if the same issues were raised in the petition by Labour Party and resolved in the petition by PDP, there was no need going to the length of the petition of the second appellant, since the issues were virtually the same. So I do not think that the brevity of time within which that decision came affected the soundness of the judgment of their lordship. I don't think so.
Can you give us an idea what addition to law in Nigeria and to our election jurisprudence that this judgment of yesterday gave us?
Well, I think that for one, I mean, the status of the Federal Capital Territory is being resolved, that for the purpose of election, the FCT will also be rated in the same way as other states of the Federation. Abuja voters, like yourself, you will not have any superior voting power over the rest of us who are in the hinterlands. And I think that's important going forward. And the other lesson is, I believe that for now, we should be able to find a way to get the National Assembly to collate these decisions, especially the decision of the Court of Appeal, that dealt with the issues so generously. Matters relating to double nomination, for instance, is still going to be causing a lot of controversy. It should be resolved once and for all. The purpose is clear. You don't want a candidate to become somebody who's like a harlot, a political harlot. You go to your constituency to contest for Senate, you lose election, then you dash again and bring out a form for presidency. You lose again, and then you go back and bring out another form for House of Reps. I think that is the mischief that the National Assembly wanted to avoid. But for some cases that you see now about people in the National Assembly in particular, I mean, it will give the impression to Nigerians that that has not been addressed. And I think that's something that is a lesson from this decision, that the National Assembly should remove the ambiguity concerning matters relating to double nomination. Then the issue of resignation of public officers, we should be clear about it. What you want to achieve is very simple. If you're a public servant within the executive and you want to hold elective office, you have to choose between the two, whether you want to continue in office or you want to resign. So you can't continue as a member of the executive, for instance, and then at the same time you are seeking to contest election to the National Assembly, and you want to retain your seat at the same time. Those matters, I think, should be addressed. Then the final one is the issue of independent candidates. Because in the way that we're going in Nigeria, when we talk about leadership recruitment and the challenges we've had in terms of the quality of representation, a lot of Nigerians are reluctant to participate in politics because of the things going on in the political parties. Many people don't want to go through this process of godfatherism, this process of ritualism, this process of money bag politics. So if you give opportunity to independent candidates to be able to contest election and then represent their people, that will give a lot of impetus to a lot of people who are currently on the sidelines and probably are not interested to soil their image or to participate in politics. That, I think, is what the National Assembly should be looking at.
I mean, going forward, I mean, just like former President Goodluck Jonathan said, that elections are over, that we need to move forward. How easy do you think it is for those who are aggrieved, especially those who think that elections, their mandates were stalling, and those who think that the elections were wrought with irregularities? How easy is it to move forward for President Tinubu, for example? Does he have a role to play in allowing Nigerians to move forward?
A lot. Everything starts and stops on the table of the president. I believe the president should borrow a leaf from President Yar'Adua, who said that the process that brought me into office cannot be commended. I do not want to replicate that legacy. So he began electoral reforms. I do not think, for instance, that given all that we have had since yesterday, that it's likely that President Bola Tinubu will still contest election in 2027. He should not be the person to appoint the chairman of INEC. He should not play any role at all. And you see that close to 3 days ago, he rolled out the name of 9 resident electoral commissioners across all the states. I don't think that that should be the case. So I urge the president to use the opportunity to recuse himself from getting involved in partisan appointments, especially in relation to those who will determine an election in which he may be a candidate. That power should be taken away from the president. The president should urgently work with the National Assembly to achieve federalism, to achieve restructuring, because these are the things that he's been known for over the years. Right from 1999, right from his NADECO days, it will be an unfortunate experience for us in this nation if we still have to convince the president on the need for restructuring, on the need for devolution of powers, on the need for us to have true federalism in Nigeria. It will be quite unfortunate. So I think everything is on the table of the president to seize the momentum of the decision of the Supreme Court and settle down and take Nigeria to a state where everybody will have a sense of belonging and not something like a winner-takes-all event.
Let me take you to Ondo State. It does look like governance in that state is being impacted by, on one hand, the health of the governor, and we're praying that he gets back on his feet, full feet, and agile, and we're hoping that his health he recovers 100%. And what has become now a rift between himself and his deputy, Mr. Aiyedatiwa, yesterday had come out to say, look, I apologize, but we are hearing from the side of the governor that he has rejected his apology. Let me get your view on what is the ongoing in Ondo State.
Sure. I'm very much sober, and I say so with all sense of respect to the 2 individuals involved in this game. Governor Oluwarotimi Akeredolu is a role model to so many of us in so many respects. And so I have continued to pray, that one way or the other, he will find the magnanimity towards calling everybody in this to order. But when I saw him with the Southwest governors, I was really delighted in my spirit because, it's been a matter of speculation. Everybody's been praying. And he's somebody who is so loved within the state and within the legal profession, and I'm sure in Nigeria too. If you remember the role he played in respect of power rotation, in respect of federalism, in respect of constitutionalism. So I was a little bit worried when I didn't hear from the governor, but I was so glad to see him with the Southwest governors. So I'm thinking and expecting that now that we have seen His Excellency and he's in good spirit and is recovering, it's not this time that we should be bickering. If the deputy has apologized for whatever reason it's worth, and the party is intervening, people should gather together and resolve the issues and let the state move forward. Both of them have less than 1 year. So I can't see the need for the bickerings. I can't see the need for all the crises because governance is at the back seat in Ondo State currently, and that shouldn't be the case. So my appeal to both the governor and the deputy is to bring themselves together. After all, they started this race and find a way to resolve their issues. Otherwise, the tension will continue in the state and there will be no development, and that will be unfortunate.
Well, what do you think could be the way forward? Because this is pure politics, isn't it? And if the governor says, oh, keep your apology, I'm not taking it. And if someone whom we have heard say a lot of the time, they're lucky, I will decrease so that you can increase. And a lot of his allies have said, no, Mr. Governor, you don't say that. But it does look like if you betrayed while he was on medical leave by the activities of Mr. Lucky and Mr. Adeye, that's why I said, look, there are those who are go-betweens that are said things to the governor that are, they are not right about his ambition. But is it a crime to have ambition? Is it also a crime to get angry if someone is disloyal? But for the sake of Ondo State people, the governor is being in your state, recuperating. But for you, in your own view, what do you think is a way forward?
First of all, power belongs to God. And I think that's what everybody should realize, whether on the side of the governor or on the side of the deputy. Power belongs to God. And so nobody should arrogate to himself, between both of them, the capacity to hold the state to ransom. Now, like I said, the governor is recovering. But his recovery probably is something that will take some time. So he's not physically available in the states where he was elected. I don't think it makes sense. If the governor, for one reason or the other, is recuperating and is not available physically to take governance, and then you also are removing the deputy, so there's such a vacuum. So the two people who are given the mandate by the people of Ondo State during the election are not available to rule. The governor is not available physically. The deputy is not being allowed to function also constitutionally. So there's a vacuum.
All right.
And I don't think that is proper. So both of them should resolve it. If the governor is not available, the deputy should stand in for him.
Mr. Ebun Olu Adegboro, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, thank you so much indeed for your time tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much. We have so much more to talk about tonight. We'll go on a short break, but when we return, rights activist, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana, will also be joining us and will be adding his voice to the Supreme Court judgment, the outcome, the state of the country, the state of our economy, and the way forward. Don't go anywhere. Mr. Falana is already standing by to speak to us on the program. We'll be right back. So much, everyone. Let's get back to the conversation. The Supreme Court judgment. Now that has happened, now we need to focus on governance. But the state of the nation needs some careful attention under the Bola Tinubu administration. Mr. Femi Falana is a right activist and a Senior Advocate of Nigeria. He joins us live from Lagos. Thank you so much, Mr. Falana, for your time tonight. Give us your own view as a senior lawyer, someone who has monitored, studied, understood our electoral jurisprudence. What do you make of the Supreme Court judgment, the outcome, the affirmation of Bola Tinubu's election?
Well, no doubt the judgment of the Supreme Court ascended the electoral contestation as far as the presidential election conducted in February this year is concerned. But for sure, it is not a judicial endorsement of the conduct of the election by INEC. And what I mean is that even with the judgment, it is very clear that Nigeria has a long way to go in terms of ensuring that credible elections are conducted, elections that will be devoid of acrimony, elections that all of us will be proud of. But we're still a long way from there, even with the judgment. Again, as I said, yes, for now, the presidential election is concluded. It should have been concluded in February, but it has just been concluded by the Supreme Court. And it shouldn't be so. The judiciary should not determine the winners of election. Judges are not suited to determine the winners of election. That is a job that is exclusively reserved for INEC if things are done properly. And that is why we must put an end to the shame that has become our lot in terms of conducting elections. Because we must all realize at all times that this country, Nigeria, is the largest concentration of Black people on earth. And we therefore have a greater responsibility to put our house in order so that Black people will not be insulted all over the world. And it doesn't take so much to conduct good elections if members of the political class are honest and dedicated to the conduct of transparent election. But that is not there. And what has worsened the case is the culture of impunity. All those who were arrested for mismanaging the last elections, thugs, including those who were armed, those who were caught with thousands of dollars or naira or millions of naira, have been let off the hook. And so it's business as usual. We are simply waiting for the next election. Once the gubernatorial elections and legislative elections disputes are over. We can't go on like this. We can't go on like this.
Mr. Falano, are you disappointed, by the way, with the manner in which, of course, those who are aggrieved, they went to court, but the manner of which the election was conducted is what has led them to go to court, to challenge the process, to challenge the outcome of the election. And we've seen an increasingly higher number of litigation on our election, which seems to have doused around 2015, but again, it rose in 2023. And I'm wondering what could have been the cause of the rising number of litigation over our elections. Are you disappointed in the conduct of that election, perhaps in the integrity of the umpire?
Now, Sean, it will interest you to know that since 2003, we recorded the lowest number of election petitions this year. You'll be surprised. Just about 426 election petitions. Whereas in 2003 and 2007, we're talking of close to 1,000, over 1,000 in 2007. Now, at that time, again, contrary to what many people feel, the 2007 election, presidential election, was narrowly won in the Supreme Court by the late Umaru Musa, Yaradua. It was a 4-3 narrow, justices of the Supreme Court that decided that case. And that was why the president said, the election that brought me into office is highly flawed. Therefore, I am going to put in place an electoral reforms panel to look at our electoral system and put an end to the shameful conduct of elections in Nigeria. If I made the point earlier, if INEC conducts good elections, nobody will go to court. In fact, you have had situations in Nigeria, particularly in 2015 or thereabout, where losers congratulated the winners. And that is how it should be. Particularly in these days of conducting elections with the aid of technology. Let everybody see what you are doing. If you say you are going to transmit election results, you must transmit. And that was the point I thought was not quite canvassed for me. Regardless of what Section 66 of the Electoral Act provides. Once INEC has gone out, telling Nigerians repeatedly, the INEC chairman was in the US, was in the UK, telling the whole world, we are going to transmit election results. You don't need any other law. By what you call the doctrine of estoppel, promissory estoppel, you cannot go back and say, I never said it. You are banned by your promise. You are banned by your commitment. Open declaration. So for us, we must begin to get it right. Again, as I said, once you operate a system whereby those who violate the law are not brought to book. You are not going to get it right. And this is why these violations of the Electoral Act have continued. Sean, we recorded the highest number of pre-election cases this year, 1,878. The Federal High Court, for several months, couldn't handle any other case because the National Assembly, again, outside the provisions of the Constitution, decided to task the Federal High Court, with the enormous responsibility of dealing with pre-election matter. And why did that happen? Party shiftings in the majority of the political parties put the Electoral Act aside and decided to impose candidates on the electorate. So many aggrieved persons went to court. In 2019, we had about, I think, 750 pre-election cases. This year, last year, 1,878. So, and those are the guys who are challenging INEC for not conducting good elections. Those who could not conduct good primaries in their political parties. Today, Nigeria conducts the worst local government elections in Africa, whereby the candidates of the ruling party in any of the states must win all chairmanship and councillorship elections. It doesn't happen anywhere, apart from Nigeria. And again, these are the guys who are blaming INEC for not conducting good elections. So the members of the Nigerian political class will have to be tasked by the Nigerian people. We have to be challenged by the Nigerian people. Whether they want democracy or autocracy, whether they want popular democracy as opposed to bourgeois democracy, whether they want maximum participation of the Nigerian people as opposed to, participation in the election by a few money bags. I believe that the intervention of the Supreme Court, and at the end of the day, other courts, will force us to go back to the drawing table and address double nomination, use of technology to conduct elections, whereby it won't be made optional, it will be compulsory. We must have electoral offenses commission to deal with electoral offenses. We must go back to the implementation of the recommendations of the Waste Panel, i.e., that honors of proof of good elections, credible elections, should rest on either. You claim you have conducted good elections. Come and prove it. But you have a situation whereby the petitioner will find it difficult to serve the respondent. The petitioner will find it difficult to obtain election materials to prove the petition. But if the onus is reversed, and INEC is asked to come and prove the conduct of good election, you have all the materials. And some of my colleagues are far. How do you do that? I said, well, no, it's like you file a petition, an application, challenging the detention of a Nigerian or a citizen. Once you can show the court that Mr. Chinwo Kimbaloye is being detained in the Ikeja police station, that's all. The onus shifts to the police to justify before the court. Why was he arrested? Why was he detained? How many days can you detain him? Why have you not brought him to trial? So, since you claim to have conducted good elections, please come and prove it. And that was the point the Waste Panel was making.
Mr. Falano, I need to take you to issues of governance, and particularly, you wrote a letter which got my interest, which you wrote to the Minister of Finance.
Yes.
But I'd like to quickly get your attention, just in 60 seconds quickly, on what former President Jonathan said today when he visited President Tinubu at the presidential villa. He said, we must move forward. and elections are over. How easy do you think Nigerians can move forward? Those who think that mandates have been stolen, these elections was not right, INEC has failed Nigerians, they are disappointed in the court, the justices of the courts have also disappointed them. Those are the belief of some people. How easy are we to move forward, and can we move forward from all of these scenarios and all of these arguments by some Nigerians, especially in the face of what Nigerians face right now under the Tinubu presidency?
No, Sean, as I said, we have fully concluded the presidential election with the judgment of the Supreme Court delivered yesterday. Election petitions are ongoing in the majority of the states. Election petitions are ongoing with respect to a number of legislative seats. So the election will not be concluded until later in the year or later in the year. And it shouldn't be so. 3 African countries conducted presidential elections in the last 1 year. In the other 2 countries, Angola and Kenya, the petitions were determined within 14 days, either by the Constitutional Court or the Supreme Court. It's only in Nigeria where you have 2 or 3 cadres, judicial cadres, to determine who the governor of a state is. That was not the position in Nigeria before now. Up to 2011, all election petitions terminated with respect to governorship election, terminated at the Court of Appeal. Why are we talking of 3 stages for presidential, 2 stages, Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court? For legislative elections, election petition tribunal and the Court of Appeal. Why should that of the governor be 3 stages? These are issues to resolve. With respect to President Jonathan, yes, I agree with you with the Supreme Court ascended the dispute over the presidential election. But for other elections, you know, we're still in court, you know. The other point, you cannot have political stability if the economy is taken over by foreign interest. If the economy is not run in the interest of the Nigerian people, if majority of people are poor and they cannot afford even 1 meal a day, not to talk of 3 square meals, we are in trouble. And that is where we are. If the value of your currency is being destroyed daily by the dollarization of the economy and the manipulation of the exchange rates by the so-called market forces who are really economic members of what you might call economic cabal. So you cannot talk of you can't talk of democracy. And that is why this government must address some of the concerns that are being raised. I just sent a letter to the Minister of Finance.
Has he responded to you, Mr. Falano? Has the Minister of Finance responded to your letter?
No.
$34 billion US dollars is involved here, right here. You are alleging and saying that money, 34.2 billion US dollars.
Yes.
That's a lot of money.
Taken illegally by the NNPCL. NNPCL. That money was destined. It was meant to be paid to the Federation account. This is money. This is our dividend and feed gas money, you know, and by the LNG and pay to the Federation account via the NNPCL. But NNPCL cornered the money. And so we are asking questions. The other letter I'm sending to the government, again, has to do with the judgment delivered by the Supreme Court in October 2018 to the fact that the federal government shall collect outstanding royalties from 6 oil companies, international oil companies, OICs, and to the tune of $62 billion. So from the 2 sources, we are talking of about $100 billion. I don't want to go into other areas. So why are we punishing ourselves? 5 years ago, the Chinese and the Nigerian government sat down and agreed to have currency swap. Now, why have Nigerians been denied the opportunity to go to China and buy goods in Naira, but paying Naira, not dollars, so that Chinese can also come to Nigeria and spend yuan? Where we are today, the world is moving. Nigeria is being left behind. What you call the BRICS, Sheung, is an attempt to dump the dollar and trade the young currencies. But our own country is being more Catholic than the Pope. You have Saudi Arabia, Egypt, UAE, and others are now in the BRICS. But we're neutral. We're not there. And that is why we have this problem of looking for dollars in Nigeria. We have a problem whereby in our own country, we are ignoring the Naira. People are spending the dollar to pay school fees, to buy properties, to pay rents, and so on and so forth. You cannot run an economy
Mr. Falana,
that will be in the interest of Nigeria.
I mean, I have just about 60 seconds or less to close the program, but I'd like you to wrap up for us on this note. We were optimistic and thought that the present government may not want to borrow, but we now know that they will have to borrow to be able to get the economy working. And they said there is a line of sight of a certain amount of billions that need to be injected into the economy, because as of today, we understand that Naira and the dollar at about 1,000 to 1,100 or 1,200 Naira. If you are to tell President Tinubu, if you are to tell President Tinubu of what to do urgently tonight, especially with the heavy burden of debt that we carry, to fix our economy, what must be done? Don't forget that there is a huge poverty in the land, Mr. Falana.
I am saying that there is no way the value of the Naira will pick up if we continue to take instructions from the IMF and World Bank to run our economy. Today, it is only those two institutions, two Bretton Woods institutions, that are commending the government for removing fuel subsidy, that are, without investigation, the fraud that characterize the importation of fuel. Those are the two institutions commending the government for floating the Naira. You don't float a currency. Apart from a banana republic, how can you float your currency when you do not control the dollar? So these are issues that the government will have to address. And I'm saying publicly, if the government is prepared, I know a team of lawyers that can help the government to recover not less than $200 billion between 3 and 6 months. So the government will have to really go back to the drawing table. How can we organize this country in the interest of our people and also in the interest of the government? Because the government needs political stability.
We're in a dire situation. Mr. Lateef Fagbemi is your very good colleague in the bar. I mean, I'm very certain that he's listening. The president, I'm also very sure that he might be watching, or his aides might be telling him of what has transpired on the program tonight. We need to get this country working again. But I must sincerely thank you, Mr. Falana, for your thought on this Friday. Instructive, and I hope that our leaders will get something out of this and take the right decision. Thank you so much indeed. Let us seek for your time tonight.
Thank you very much, Shem.
I appreciate it. That's show for tonight, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'll see you on Sunday at 8 p.m. I'm Seun Okimale. God bless Nigeria.